Hey guys, welcome back to MMA Library. Today in MMA and UFC news. Last night at UFC 288, Belal Muhammad secured a victory over Gilbert Burns via decision. Here's what the UFC community had to say about Belal's victory. Anthony Pettis tweeted, "Remember the name, Belal Muhammad." Brett Okamoto tweeted, "Need to know the whole story, but if Burns went into a fight of this magnitude with an injury, after he's already fought twice in 2023, why?" Conor McGregor didn't seem to be a fan of the fight, calling it a very poor bout. Here's what Belal had to say following his victory.
For me, I said, man, you give me 8 weeks, I'm gonna beat John Jones. You give me 3 weeks, I could beat any welterweight in the world.
Aljamain Sterling successfully defended his bantamweight title last night at UFC 288 in a close decision victory over the returning Henry Cejudo. Here's what a few members of the MMA community had to say about the fight. Ariel Hawani tweeted, "Henry Cejudo, this may be the last time you see me in the octagon." Umar Nurmagomedov didn't agree with the judge's scorecards. He wrote 3-2 Henry Cejudo. Brett Okamoto tweets, "Go to 145 Cejudo, why not? That's what he wanted anyway. Cejudo versus Max Holloway. Max is in a weird spot anyway. Cejudo versus Holloway. Holloway versus Cejudo, yeah?" Conor McGregor said, "Easiest money I've ever made. Not a scratch on Aljo. Congrats Funkmaster. Good little fighter is Henry, but give it a rest with these agendas all the time. This guy has sub 20 fights in his career. His little feints and all, OMG, please teach me, mastermind." Dana White reveals he believes Leon Edwards will defend his title against Colby Covington this year. Here's what Dana had to say during a recent interview.
And when do you expect that Colby and Edwards fight to happen?
I don't. I don't know. I don't know. If I did, I would have announced it already. But, it's going to happen this year.
But these guys may have to wait a full year before.
I don't think they'll have to wait a year. No, I don't think they'll have to wait a year.
Do you think that by the end of this year, it's realistic that they are able to fight for the title?
I hope so, yeah.
Dana also commented on who they're lining up next for Israel Adesanya.
Alex Pereira came out today and said that Israel's been asking for a trilogy fight. Have you heard anything about that? Any truth to whether or not a third fight with Alex Pereira could be made?
I don't know. But yeah, it obviously could be. I mean, you could have those guys fight every weekend. But that's not the next fight for sure.
What do you think is? Do you think it's the Whitaker and Dricus winner?
I don't know. We'll see.
Because again, not a lot of logical talent. He's beaten a lot of the guys in this division.
Yeah. There's actually a couple other logical ones.
Jon Anik recently gave his thoughts on who Paulo Costa may get matched up with next. Here's what Anik had to say.
It's a great question. Obviously he was trying to get on this card on short notice against Jan Blachowicz, and I do think super fights for Paulo Costa are actually okay if he wanted to bounce between 85 and 205 pounds. I think most prevailingly disappointing for me is that Robert Whitaker no longer has an appetite for the Paulo Costa fight, because I'm not going to sit here and say that Costa is flaky. I have publicly supported him for years, but sometimes you just don't know exactly where he stands, and maybe there's some misinformation that you have to sift through when it comes to his public pursuit of fights and other things. But this sport's better with Paulo Costa in it. I do believe if he gets back to a championship setting, he'll be much better than he was at UFC 253. But damn, man, I wish he fought Robert Whitaker. That's the fight I want to see.
Anik then commented on Kamaru Usman calling out Khamzat Chimaev.
Khamzat was the #1 contender. He was the guy who twice or thrice was scheduled to face Leon Edwards, and that fight didn't materialize. Khamzat has left the division. Dana has no interest in a catchweight fight. I don't have to tell you that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them do Usman and Chimaev at 85. But it does seem as though Usman wants to remain on a trajectory back to the belt at 70. So I'm not sure the Chimaev fight really does enough for him as far as that goal is concerned.
During a recent edition of the Believing Me podcast, Anthony Smith discusses potential rule changes in the UFC.
Rule changes. What everyone wants is these huge, big, dramatic changes that's going to make the sport look different. Guys, it's not going to happen. Any changes you see are going to be very incremental. They're going to be very small. And over a long period of time, you look at now and then look at it in 20 years, you're going to see probably a big difference. But as we go, they're going to be small little changes. I've always wanted more weight classes, but I understand why we don't do it. You don't want it to end up like boxing because think about this, like if there was a 140, 145, 155, 165, 175, you're going to have, however many champs that is. And then guys are going to be bouncing up and down 5 pounds here and there. And it just gets messy and it just muddies the waters. And so I get it. Would it be beneficial to me? For sure. Like if there was a 195 or 200, that would benefit me. You know what I mean? But I understand why we don't do it and why the UFC doesn't do it as a business. Knees to a grounded opponent. I also wish that was something that we did. But when it comes to, obviously, yes, it's inherently dangerous what we do. But any of these rule changes and things that we do, you're never going to see us do something that makes it more dangerous.
What do you guys think about Smith's comments? Would you like to see more weight classes in the UFC? Let us know your opinion in the comment section. Chael Sonnen gives his take on what motivates Jon Jones to continue fighting during a recent YouTube video.
I'm reading a headline. It's by Jon's former top opponent, in my opinion, Daniel Cormier. And Daniel says that Jon is running out of challenges. And I don't know that I would disagree with Daniel in the least about the statement Jon is running out of challenges. I would disagree with the premise, which implies Jon somehow needs a challenge. Or that without a challenge, we're not going to have Jon. Or a motivation, or a training factor, or get him to show up, or get him into the octagon. I mean, this is very much what it implies. And that was true once upon a time. By example, the first time I met him, when he was 21 and in a hot tub and staring at me and Matt saying that he'd won the junior college and wanted to go down this road. I mean, in all fairness, Jon Jones not fighting for challenges anymore. He's not even fighting for championships anymore. He's fighting for money. You could take the main event out of it. You could take the people out of the ring. You could take the posters out of it. You could take anything out of it you want. You could take the titles away. You could take anything out of it you want. If you take the money out, he's not showing up. That's the one reason he's fighting.
Former UFC middleweight champion Rich Franklin gives his take on Francis Ngannou's situation. Here's what Franklin had to say during an interview with Helen Yee.
I heard the news this morning, and I mean, surprised, I don't know, because when you're negotiating with athletes, a lot more goes into that than just dollars. And I don't know what the deciding factor was. Like, I'm not part of that negotiation. I'm not bringing that kind of talent into the organization. I've been working on helping set up this event here in the U.S. But, if it, Chatri made the statement that it wasn't a financially related decision. So then I immediately in my head as a fan, I say, well, then, was management or agency too difficult? Were there other demands? Something had to make that, if it wasn't financial, something had to make that very unattractive. And Dana as well said that the UFC is not interested in bringing him back in either. So the question you got to ask yourself is, well, why? What are those reasons? I don't know at this point in time, but it's just a reminder to athletes out there that it's like, you need to be a good fighter and be able to put on exciting fights and put butts in seats and be able to sell pay-per-views. But secondly, organizations are going to work with fighters that are easier to work with as well,
Ally Iaquinta believes Islam Makhachev could surpass the legacy of Khabib Nurmagomedov. During a recent interview with the Schmo, Iaquinta had this to say.
Islam, he's looking tough to beat, Islam's looking tough to beat. I don't know. Who was it? Who'd you say?
Khabib and Islam.
Oh, if they fought each other?
Well, I'm talking about when you look at the accolades, when it's all said and done, whose legacies
Khabib right now is, I think, ahead of him. But Islam's on his way for sure.
What does he have to do to surpass him?
I think he needs like a rival, Khabib had Conor, and I think that was a big rival, and then got the title, defended it a couple times. I think maybe like a big rivalry, to kind of put him over, and then a couple title defenses. But yeah, he's on his way.
Iaquinta also gave his take on whether or not Conor McGregor will fight Michael Chandler.
Conor, who knows what's up with Conor? He's all over the place.
I saw him taking that drink over there at the BKFC event, the Proper 12, taking that swig.
Nah, he's enjoying himself. That's for sure. I don't know. He's big and he looks different. He might be on some secret stuff. I don't know.
Guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. If you like the content we do here on this channel, don't forget to like and subscribe to MMA Library for all the latest MMA and UFC news. We'll see you in the next video.